You know, I never know how to start these. Let's see. Hello studious minds, and welcome back to Pagan Philosophy, the channel where we strive to further our understanding of what it truly means to love knowledge. Today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about Theurgy. Theurgy was... what was Theurgy? Theurgy was a mysterious ritual art practiced by the later Neoplatonists. Neoplatonism was the last official school of Greek philosophy. But before we get into the magic, we should talk about what Neoplatonism was. I will be dedicating an entire series to Neoplatonism later on, so don't forget to subscribe if you don't want to miss that. To start with, Neoplatonists didn't call themselves Neoplatonists. We call them Neoplatonists, it's a modern term. They would have just seen themselves as Platonists. And they felt like most philosophers of the time, like they were expanding on Plato's ideas. They weren't making up new ideas, but just taking what he started and finishing it. Because that was part of the philosophical tradition. You were supposed to expand on Plato's ideas. Modern scholars trace the origins of Neoplatonism back to the philosopher Plotinus. Scholars aren't completely certain how many people may have influenced him. We know he had maybe a few different outside sources who might have played a role. Plotinus claimed that the source of all things was the One. This was like a perfect, unified first source. He would even go as far as to say that the One is not in existence. It can exist because the things that emanate from it exist. It's outside of existence. So the One is not God, it's what the gods come from. One of his students asked him, how do we know what the One is? How do we understand the One? And Plotinus' answer was, take away everything else, and that's the One. The One emanates out of itself like a light. It just overflows outside of itself. So, what does it overflow into? The divine mind. The divine mind is like Aristotle's God. For those of you who don't know, it's all ideas, all perfect ideas combined into one ever-thinking, ever-contemplating mind. And as a result of the divine mind always contemplating itself, it gives way to the world soul. And then from the world soul comes matter. The further down you go in the emanations, the more imperfect it gets. So the One is ultimate perfection, it's utter unity. And then you have matter, which is like absence of existence. Plotinus would have said that matter isn't even real. It's so imperfect and it's like a shadow, a foggy reflection of what is real. Now, we need to understand that Plotinus lived in a pagan society. This would have been in the 3rd century AD in the Roman Empire. So this would have been after Jesus. Now he didn't view the gods as most people would have viewed the gods. Most people would have thought of the gods as actual invisible beings in the sky who can appear if they choose. You can anger them, they get mad. And then you should also know that atheism was virtually non-existent back then. People just were not atheists. Everybody just accepted that the gods were. Now Plotinus would take on an especially unique view of the gods. He actually claimed that all the gods that these people were worshiping and all the gods that people were calling to during rituals, that they were not the great beings that people thought they were. It seems like he felt that they were lower level demons. I'm not talking about your typical Christian demon, the evil spirit that tempts people and torments people and is trying to send everybody to hell. Demons to the Greeks were intermediary spirits. They were not evil, but they weren't good. They just were. When a priest was sacrificing or was reading the entrails of an animal or the flight patterns of birds, they weren't directly interacting with a god. They were interacting with demons. And that's demon spelled D-A-E-M-O-N, who would then intercede on our behalf and go to the gods. And then the gods wouldn't directly act on us, they would send the demons back. One of Plotinus's followers, his name was Iamblichus, he was a regular attendant of the new moon festivals. Every month, they would have holy days in honor of the new moon where people would gather to worship the gods. Iamblichus was one of these people who would attend. He actually invited Plotinus one day, and Plotinus told him no. He said, "It is for those beings to come to me, not for me to go to them." In that time, this might seem like especially blasphemous. This might seem really sacrilegious for somebody who's religious like Plotinus to say. It seems like he felt that those gods were still lower in the grand scheme of things. He felt that the philosopher, or at least the successful philosopher, could rise above the gods. He was at the level already above those spirits, above those demons. Demons. Not Christian demons. the original demons. But one of his successors, whose name was Iamblichus, would come to promote a very different idea. He proposed the idea that we rise up the hierarchy by using magic. And not like stage magic like David Copperfield, but like real, bona fide, legitimate sorcery, occults, magic, spells, and charm stuff. But again, we should understand that this wasn't weird or foreign for his time. Everybody believed in magic in that era. It worked because the gods were real. People believed the gods existed. People believed there were many spirits in nature, and intermediary spirits, and spirits of the dead, and naturally we would be able to interact with them. People developed rituals and different ceremonies that they can engage in. We even have copies of what we call the Greek magical papyri. This is pretty much an ancient spell book filled with different rituals and incantations to call on gods and demons. Iamblichus argued that Plotinus's methods were invalid because even Plotinus himself claimed that the One was outside of intelligence. It's outside of all things. Existence and intelligence come from the One. The One, therefore, is outside of intelligence, so it can't be understood. So how could intellectual pursuits lead us back to the One? How could they help us understand the One? Well, the idea to Iamblichus is that they can't. But remember, Plotinus did believe in the existence of the gods. He just thought they were on a lower level. We only become above the gods when we transcend as philosophers. Iamblichus believed that we can start with the gods and finish with the gods. We can start by worshiping them and calling on them in these rituals and purifying us of the bodily, material concerns, and direct our attention upwards through the aid of the gods and through the aid of these demons and intercessory spirits between us and the One. So magic and religion to Plotinus and Porphyry were just physical, material, mundane pursuits that really don't do anything in the grand scheme of things. Nonetheless, he did believe that they worked. They're just not necessary. So through this, we could see the Neoplatonic split. Those who sided with Plotinus's ideas, that philosophy and the intellectual is what helps us go upwards, and those who sided with Iamblichus in believing that magic and these mysterious secret rituals and religious observances would help us free our soul from material bondage. So that's our video on Theurgy. If you like this video, please subscribe because we will be making a series later on devoted just to Neoplatonism, where we'll analyze the different philosophers and the different schools of thought, and we might even bring up Theurgy again. And comment below on things that you might be interested in hearing about. Maybe we'll get to a few. But until next time, friends, stay studious.